You are a market leader operating in a highly competitive industry where efficiency and tangible results are paramount. You have a small and dedicated marketing team focused on executing regular marketing communications that must deliver immediate, measurable outcomes. You need a marketing partner that can seamlessly collaborate with your team, ensuring swift and frictionless execution, all while achieving quantifiable results in real time. My name is Tyler Chisholm, and as the co-founder and CEO of Clear Marketing, we can help. With over 15 years of work with clients exactly like you from across North America, we have the team, the skills, and the processes to deliver the marketing that matters to you. Reach out to me on LinkedIn or check out clearmotive.ca to learn more. Hello and a warm Collisions YYC. Welcome to my guest, Ms. Jamie L. Smith. How are you, Miss Smith? How are you, Miss L. Smith?
I'm great. I'm excited to be here with you.
Oh, so good to come on. And as I often do, one degree of separation. I think it was Cindy Gray that introduced us, if I'm not mistaken. I love Calgary, biggest small town ever. I say it a million times, but it's still true. It's true every time. Are you Calgarian? Are you an import? That matters, but I'm always curious. I'm curious.
I'm from Saskatchewan, so I grew up in Moose, and I did all my university time at U of R and U of S, and most of my career though has been here in Calgary.
Amazing. I learned very quickly when I moved to Alberta. I'm from Quebec, so I moved here, and that Saskatchewan stock is prized here in Alberta for work ethic, resilience, the ability to figure shit out and get shit done. So you're already you just put yourself in a higher category for me right out of the gate, Jamie.
That's amazing.
I met some guys where they're like, oh, if I see Saskatchewan on the resume, I just hire them and figure out how to use them because I know they're going to be good. I was like, okay, I didn't know that was a thing when I'm remembering back to my early days in Alberta. All right, let's dive right in. You've got a big handle on I want to read it, but it's a lot. Co-founder and chief experience officer at Amplify, helping grow businesses scale through financial strategy. We provide finance leaders, recruiting, consulting, and Amplify tech, including CFO and emerging ERP services. I usually don't read the bio, but I felt it encapsulated a lot. You're a busy human being, and you do a lot, and you contribute a lot to the world you live in. So I thought it was value. But give us a little bit of a breakdown. Let us in. What is Amplify all about? What do you do? What problems do you solve? What blows your hair back? And let's go from there.
Awesome. So Amplify Advisors is 5+ years old. We're going to have our birthday party in May, so people can certainly come to that.
Happy almost birthday. Happy almost
birthday.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And so we've been around for 5+ years, and we do financial strategy, and we work with growth businesses. So really trying to make sure that those employers of our community have the financial health and the financial strategy to do what they're trying to do from a strategy and goals and purpose perspective. And so we do that through solving people problems, and we have fractional CFOs, fractional controllers, and about half of that department's clients were actually the entire finance and accounting department, so full outsourcing as well. Sometimes people want the more traditional model, or they're a bit larger, and so they're looking for permanent or temporary solutions. So we do recruiting and place CPAs in permanent and temporary roles. And then, of course, there's always the tech side, and we solve that problem through emerging ERPs. And we're a partner with the two best emerging ERPs, in our opinion, which is NetSuite and Acumatica. And then, of course, if we're looking at the trifecta of problems, people, technology, those are our sweet spots, but process comes in, and we always say that process usually follows hand in hand with people or technology. But we also do consulting if there's literally a need to get a process problem fixed. Well, so none of the traditional tax and audit and assurance work, but we are a CPA firm, and we are helping financial strategy every day.
I love it. I think you've been in this elevator before with that elevator speech. That was a lot, but very well articulated, which as a marketer, touche. You've practiced that. That doesn't happen by accident. Let's just unpack a few terms. Growth businesses could mean a lot of things to a lot of people. What does it mean to you?
So the analogy I like to give is that even if you were a $20 million pizza shop on a corner, and that's not a small pizza shop, I don't think.
No, that would be a pretty good. I don't know much about the pizza business, but that seems like pretty good. It seems like a lot of pies. It's a lot of pies to get to 20 million.
I think probably couldn't sustain a pizza shop of that size. But if you're a pizza shop that's not going to be doing new products, not doing new services, not opening new locations, and just really successful and maybe even really big, then to be honest with you, our services wouldn't provide great value to you. Okay. Because where our services provide value is when you're trying to scale and complexity has come into your business, and you need that assistance in order to make sure that you have the right people, the right process, and the right technology, so that as you grow, your back office and your accounting and finance is helping not to be cheesy, but help amplify the growth as opposed to becoming a real cost burden, which is what happens if you don't invest in the scale, the technology, and the people. Then, for every 100 transactions, you're hiring a new person. That's obviously not real numbers, but
Oh, but
you know what I
that's what
mean.
happens when you don't have a good. You're just like, oh, the old way is to throw more bodies at it, which usually just creates a disaster.
Yeah,
Like
exactly. And then,
literally, I've been there. I've done it. We had a rapid growth, won a big piece of business, and we were 9 people, but went from 9 to 30, and literally everything blew up. It was such a mess. We held on to the business 12 years later, but I remember that I got business PTSD for sure just from that, because it doesn't matter how big or small you are. Rapid is growth, and it can
absolutely.
tip you over before you even realize what happened.
And that's clients that come to us. I mean, the reality is most clients don't proactively invest in their financial leadership or financial strategy, right? But what happens is they are growing, they have great business people, they have great business ideas, and they don't expect the consequences of growth. And there are consequences to growth. So, as we were talking about in our pre discussion, cash flow is one that's very obvious, right? And so, with growth comes cash flow challenges. That's just a fact, and you'd have a hard time proving to me otherwise. But cash flow challenges can be managed and don't have to become cash flow issues. They don't have to become runway or distress or going concern problems. But without a question, you'll run into cash flow challenges with growth because you'll have volatility, you'll have timing issues, you'll have all kinds of things that take strategic management to get through. And so that's the type of thing that would trigger someone to come talk to us. Other things would include financing because by and large, a company can't bootstrap their way to their goals and their strategy, right? And so they need
Yeah, that's so
equity
funny.
or they need debt, and oftentimes they don't know which, and they're not necessarily set up to get through the due diligence. So that's a great trigger as well. And there's various other things, but a lot of times when they are coming to us, it's because they've hit a point of stress.
Let's just talk about some of the roles because I think this is you and I joked about this offline. Like even the lost language that exists with different terms. Oh, controller versus CFO versus finance manager versus bookkeeper versus auditor. Just talk a bit about cash flow. Like, so I'm a business and I've been running for a few years and I've got my accounting in place. I've got some bookkeepers. I have an accounting firm that does my tax, but all of a sudden I'm starting to grow and let's just pick on cash flow issues. Is it just that level of sophistication or that like I'm seeing what's happening in front of me, but you need someone who's going to look out a lot farther? Like just talk to me about the different roles that all of a sudden start to be required at the table when you go from a going concern active business that's had some okay growth to like, okay, now we're going to get into financing problems. Now who are the roles that need to start showing up and what's that acumen that you might not have and you don't even realize it yet?
Yeah, so I think, within a small business that's growing, they need that trifecta, as we call it, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, pretty much every business has a bookkeeper of some sort fairly fast, and oftentimes they'll look at that bookkeeper and ask them to do work of a controller or CFO without recognizing that's not within the scope of what you're paying for. And it's often not within the scope of the skill set and expertise of that person. But even if they are capable of it, you're usually not paying for it. So the issue comes about where people are expecting their bookkeeper to be looking forward when the reality is the contract that they're paying for, the employee contract or outsourcing contract, that doesn't include it. And most likely that person can't do it either because that's just not the experience and background they
Not their
have.
skill set.
And so a bookkeeper is really a record keeping. They keep the lights on, they keep the books, they
Mm-hmm.
keep the historical data recorded and up to date, right? And then the controller, which is the next level up, is really watching for the quality of that and ensuring that analysis and such can get done when specifically directed and asked. But a CFO is a true business leader first. And so when I hire my CFOs, I make sure that they're strategic from a business leader perspective, not just an excellent accountant and finance person. Because for a growth business and a small medium business, you have to be a business leader first. And then you bring to the table of the executive the finance and accounting expertise. And so that really is knowing what all the possible consequences and opportunities are of the ideas that are being discussed and how to leverage the assets and resources of the company in a way that can provide growth with the least amount of additional costs and resources, right? And so the CFO is much more forward looking and coming up with ideas and supporting ideas from a financial perspective. And so the difference, in a lot of small businesses will try and hire a controller slash CFO, or even worse, they try and get the whole trifecta done by one person. But the human condition really is that if you're in the weeds and you're in the details, your ability to actually have a big picture perspective doesn't exist. So for example, I would suggest that I'm a decent CFO. My staff are great CFOs, by the way, but I'm a decent CFO.
Humility is a lovely skill, Jamie.
But my staff are excellent CFOs. But if I'm doing the controller work, I'm not going to actually see the big picture. I'm not going to see the ideas. And even though that would be my skill set, that's where I am at from a resume and experience perspective. You put me in the weeds. The human condition is I'm not going to be able to do it. So that's a big sacrifice that small and medium businesses do. And then to your earlier point, the other thing is that they expect their tax expert to be bringing that to the table. And absolutely, I love the tax experts in our community. They send us a ton of work and they do very, very complex, important work. And so in no way would I ever discredit the importance and the intelligence of a tax expert. But the reality is almost no tax expert that a small, medium business is employing or outsourcing has been a business leader, right? Yeah. By and large, they've been professional services. They've been doing kick-ass work in the area of professional services, maybe audit, maybe other insurance, and obviously tax at this point in their career. They are not business leaders. They maybe run a firm at most, but we all know that a tax firm is not a typical business. So that's not a transferable business leadership opportunity. And so they have not been in-house. They have not led businesses. So for you to be expecting them to see opportunities and see risks and be forward thinking is, again, not within their skill set by and large. And even if you found that unicorn that was a business leader first and a tax expert second, which they almost never exist, and if you find one, I will hire them, so send them my way. But if you did find one, the reality is that's not what you're paying them for, and that's not within the scope of their time or effort that they're putting forward. And so these are the dynamics of and small medium business. Why the hell would they care about anything I just said? That's not important to them, and that's why they make decisions that don't work for their business when it comes to financial strategy.
Okay, is everyone taking some notes? Because if you're in a small to medium or in a growth-oriented business, you've run into some of these decisions maybe or made them yourself. I know I have. Looking back, I'm like, I should talk to you about 10 years ago, but that's okay. I got it sorted. Who's your sweet spot? Like what size? Because if you're a large organization, you've got a lot of layers, you've got teams, you've got this. I feel like we're really more camping out on that small, medium, but growth, like exactly what you said earlier. But I can be small and on rapid growth and have huge opportunity, but I can be medium and have chugged along for years running a good business. Now, all of a sudden I'm in some type of a growth mode, whether it's an opportunity, an expansion, a new product, who knows what it is, or just a boom in my market. That's where I feel like we're talking around right now. Is that who your target, is that who describes your ideal customer?
So the ideal time to come on with a proper financial strategy and proper financial leadership is that 1 to 5 million with big growth plans. Because at that point, you have not made a mess of anything and we can hit the ground running and we are providing value literally on day one. The reality is almost every client that comes to Amplify is usually about 12 to 20 million. They wait until there is a bit of a mess. And so I always use the analogy of a garden. If you come to me with a clean slate of land, I can plant a garden. It's going to be gorgeous, right? If you come to me with a weedy ass shit piece of land, I'm going to be able to break my back and clean it up, and the end result is exact same, but the difference in labor and effort and sweat remarkably different.
Well, and
right?
the pain and the distraction that it causes you in your business. Like, let's not forget that, right? Because when you're dealing with a messy garden, you're not dealing with your growth opportunity in the same way.
Exactly. And so that weeding and backbreaking effort does not feel like value, right? It doesn't feel like value providing work.
Feels like feels like you're vacuuming the hallways.
Yeah. So most of our clients though do have a component of that. They're 12 to 20 million. And if you're at 20 million and you're still planning to grow, we would look at recruiting as the option and having a permanent staff and really investing in permanent. But it depends on culture and as much as size, right?
Multiple factors.
But 1 to 5 is idealistic, doesn't usually happen. 12 to 20 is when it usually happens, and then 20 plus, let's look at a permanent solution, because it's often more cost effective, and you
Yeah.
can afford it. You really can. You'll get the value.
Talk to me about the fractional word, which is becoming so much more trendy. We talked about it off air. You said even 5 years ago, people would look at you kind of like, what do you mean fractional? Where now, especially in Calgary, and I think it's a sign of our market maybe maturing a little bit, I'm running into it in marketing. I'm running it finance for sure. I'm running it into fractional CTO. It seems to be all of a sudden just a commonplace word that not that long ago it was not.
Yeah, so when we started Amplify, fractional was not a word that people knew. I won't pretend that Jesse, my business partner, and I invented it or came up with something brilliant. It was very well known in other countries,
Other markets. Yeah.
especially, and even Vancouver was quite a bit further ahead than us here in Alberta. And so, yeah, it was basically not a thing. And now it is like the buzz. I was just on a panel a couple of weeks ago, and they filled the entire room with fractional leaders. I was so
Oh,
impressed.
I had someone was
Yeah,
telling me about that panel that they were shocked at the turnout.
yeah, and they were
Oh, you
every
were on
single
you were on the panel. Oh, amazing.
yeah,
What
every
a
single
small
person in
town
that
Calgary
room.
right there. Yeah.
Yeah, every single person in that room was a fractional leader of a certain function, right?
Interesting.
And so what's amazing, and it doesn't matter which area we're talking about, obviously there'll be dynamics in terms of cost, but a CFO, a true CFO, is over 200,000. And so,
Yeah.
hint, hint, if you have a CFO that you're paying less than 200,000, you probably have a controller that you gave a CFO title to, and that might be great, but you probably don't have a
And
CFO.
you hope they're not listening to this episode right now, but anyways.
Well, good for them.
Or maybe so. So they realize also themselves, because you're also, I hate setting employees up for failure. Like, oh, I'm giving them more responsibility. I'm like, but if they don't know how to fly the plane, asking them to fly the plane isn't more responsibility. It's setting them up for a crash, right?
Exactly. And so, 200,000 plus dollars on your payroll is no small feat, especially if you're a small, medium business that has not seen that financial strategy amplifies growth. So you're going to be looking at that as a cost center
Yeah.
payroll addition. That's a lot. That's a lot to invest, right? And frankly, you don't need it and you can't afford it. So the great thing about fractional is that my CFOs are actual CFOs. I'm at this point in time, I'm not of a size that I'm a training shop. So every CFO I hire has been there and done that. As it turns out, most of them have had some pretty major transactions in their career. Most of them are the best of the big, meaning they've been at big companies or trained
Yep.
at big firms. And so they're passionate about working with small, medium business, but they are actual CFOs. So you're not cheaping out in order to save payroll. You're getting what you actually need at a level that's practical for your business. And the same could be said for any other fractional, like a CMO or CTO or what have you, right? So you're getting that actual expertise, what you actually need, but at a practical level for your business. And you need to make those decisions about people and technology and process based on where you're going, not where you're at. But the
Yes.
reality is you can only afford so much because of where you're at. And so this allows you to make decisions based on where you're going in an affordable, practical level that matches where you're at. And so it's really exciting to me because obviously small, medium businesses employ over 90% of our community,
Yeah.
and they deserve this type of expertise, and they're going to grow, and a lot of them are purpose driven in whatever component, and they're going to achieve those strategies, achieve those purposes, and employ our society because of this assistance. So it's a super fun world to be in, and I'm really excited that it's becoming trendier.
She's smiling ear to ear, everyone. You can't see it because
Yes.
this is audio only, but you can hear a smile when someone's talking. You're literally glowing right now. And also the simple reality, some of these companies might not need, I'm just picking 40 hours a week. I don't know anyone, like rare that someone at a senior level even works as minimum as 40 hours, but that's also, I don't need someone to sit around making work. I need them to come in, have high impact, do the thing I need for 30%, 20%, 50% of what would be a full-time employee, right?
Absolutely. And then going back to what I was saying before, it lets you get the right person in the right seat. So you're not paying, say, 200,000 to a CFO, getting that person to do the controller work, getting that person to do the
Yeah.
bookkeeping work, and then you have that human condition issue where now, guess what? They're working a hard, busy 40 hours a week, but
Yep.
they are not actually stepping up as an executive because you've created an environment that they can't, right? And so it's right person, right seat is another huge part of having fractional. And don't get me wrong, I coach fractional people all the time at no cost, no cost to them. And I always
Well,
talk
you're improving because there's knowing the skill, but then there's knowing how to do it in a fractional way. Like I appreciate it's a new formula of delivery, right? Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. And so I always say, like, hey, if you think you're going to get paid by small medium business to just be an executive, like, there's going to be moments you got to get in the weeds, you got to execute,
Yeah.
you got to actually deliver. You can't just be like a seagull that flies around shitting all over everything. That's not that's not what it is, right? Like, you do have to get your hands dirty. But right person, right seat, just because you're doing controller work doesn't mean that you're not doing it side by side with a controller, right? You're just doing what needs to get done as a team. And so certainly fractional, I don't think a fractional that's pure strategy, pure executive is going to be successful. It's not practical. But at the same time, these companies can have the right person, the right seat, and at a practical and affordable level. So
And would I bring someone in, like thinking this as a gig, like I'm going to bring them in for 3 months to get my strategy in place, look at my technology needs, look at where I'm growing. And then maybe I don't need them as much for a while because I do have an internal team. Like I'm assuming there's all kinds of formulas, right, to how this works, how this plays out. Mhm.
yeah, there's definitely all kinds of formulas. And so at Amplify, which is not the be all end all formula, there's many formulas. At Amplify, we integrate into culture and we do have longer term relationships with our clients because of the nature of the type of clients that we work with. So ultimately, we want them to evolve and grow out of working with Amplify's fractional and then hopefully use our recruiting and get supported by our tech, right? So they are longer term.
The continuum of care. I see it. Yes, I get
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to provide value and build relationships so that we are the best trusted advisor they could have. But we do integrate into culture and it is longer term, just the nature of finance and accounting. It's
Yeah.
if you go in for a short period of time, that can be a bit more of a consulting gig, which we sell those too. But by and large, they need someone on a more longer term because they need someone to take over the stakeholder relationships, right? And so our CFOs become the point person for the banks, for the investors, for many of the vendors and partnerships, and many of the major contracts, and they're truly taking over the CFO role and responsibility and becoming a director and officer, which is generally, a year is our contracts to begin. If someone outgrows faster, it's not hard to get out of the contract, but a lot of our clients are best served for 3 to 5 years, and then
Oh,
they
okay.
mature past us.
Things you're talking about, like financing, whether it's equity, whether it's debt, whether it's cash flow. There's vendor relationships, there's bank relationships. There's so many. Like I like what you said there. It's not transactional. There's a whole bunch of relationships that somebody needs to own, but can speak to it in the right way. Knows the right lingo to use. He knows what to ask for. And sometimes you outgrow. You think you know as a business leader, but you don't. That there's just another way to look at these terms that someone proposed to you, but someone with experience and go, oh, wait a second, we can negotiate this. That value is you can point at it, but it's a bit abstract until it shows up, right? Until it lands.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, at the end of the day, most businesses, regardless of the industry, you can be a lot more successful if you're investing appropriately in your stakeholder relationships, right? And if you expect your CEO to be the point person for your lawyer, your banker, your investors, your major vendors, plus a lot of these small and medium businesses, the CEO is running the team
Yeah.
and or they're selling the product or
They're,
service.
they're,
And
they're the face of the business. Yeah.
that's
Totally.
just ridiculous, right? And so having those strategic relationships be properly invested in and served by someone at an executive level that's going to represent you and your culture and your team the way that you expect to be represented is a major burden lift off a CEO's shoulders for sure.
Well, as a leader, you're like, ah, that feels great. Just
Yeah,
to know
yeah,
that you got
exactly. And
somebody
you
who has
know
your
that
back.
if things escalate, you can trust them that you will get pulled in appropriately, right? But
Yeah.
and that also helps negotiations. Let's be honest. If there's an opportunity to move it up a level, it can change the
Which
negotiation.
is all part of a good strategy as well when it comes
Yeah,
to community. Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
So talk to me a little bit about you've got to have seen some things, some stuff and things, some horror stories, some success stories. Everybody loves a little train wreck story, but what are some of the stories that come to mind for you where you're like, whoa, wow, if we got involved and holy shit, this is what was going on. Like what could happen? Everybody loves a little bit around the fireside. Like, oh, let Jamie's going to tell us a story. What do you got? Anything good?
Yeah, I mean, I remember one client we had where actually it was a bit rare in some ways because a lot of times we're the first CFO, but in this case there was a CFO. And as we were transitioning and they brought us in to replace them. As we were transitioning, the news and the story was that there was no cash flow concerns, and it was interesting because it was a cash business, and there had historically not been cash flow issues because the cash flow came in and there was almost no receivables in this particular industry, so cash came in and it matched pretty close to the inventory
Yep.
and labor, and there had historically, and this company was about 12 years running, there hadn't been cash flow issues, but they were going into a new product line where they were putting product on shelves in retail, which they had never previously done. And so the forecasting, the CFO had not gotten to the point where that idea was enough of an idea that he had seen the cash flow concerns with inventory. So, when you're creating a product and then you've got that inventory on shelves, but you haven't actually sold it, that's a major cash flow issue. And that was completely brand new service, a brand new product line, a brand new part of the business. And so it was interesting because in that particular client, they were very opposed to debt. They had absolutely no debt available. And so when we went in, one of the first conversations we had is like, we're looking at everything. We understand you don't have cash flow, but you're also bankable. So we need an operating credit line. And there was a lot of pushback because they were very allergic to debt. And so it was interesting because as the CFO worked through the new product lines and the new types of business, it became clear that operating credit line was no longer a nice to have, but a must have. And thankfully, it all landed at almost the right time where the credit line got approved, and then the cash flow challenges started. But it's interesting because they didn't see it coming, right? They hadn't been in the business where receivables were part of the business. And so that's a simple example, but it's not an uncommon example. I mean, another one that's happening, even right now, we walk in and, in a traditional CFO or a CPA that's a bit more risk adverse, looks at this and is like, these guys are going bankrupt. This is hopeless, right? And so that could be your initial response when you look at some of these clients, right? Because they're just
that's very dark. The word bankrupt is a dark word.
I know.
Business.
And that's where my hiring and my training is like, okay, these words are like, you can't use these words.
Yeah.
What it says.
You want to be perceived as here to help, not like, oh, it's fine until I talk to your people and now holy shit, the sky's falling.
Yeah, exactly. And so, in this case, it's really as simple as, we've got our client experience, we've got our values, and that's the principles of how we approach this. And at the end of the day, not to oversimplify it, but honestly, Tyler, it really ends up being this simple 90% of the time. The first thing we have to do is actually present the information. And so this is often the first time that the client has actually heard the truth. And you know what? These business leaders are friggin' smart. If they know the truth, they come up with solutions often right there and then. Like, honestly, the problem is they haven't had a clear picture of the truth. And so it's very, very common that as soon as they hear the truth, they come up with multiple possibilities and action them like that. And it's just incredible to watch. And it is inspiring to work with these business leaders. So often it's as simple as that. And if it's not that simple, which is really quite magical to watch, then the next thing is coming up with a plan. And yes, we have to drive the plan. And that plan might be more complicated. And of course, what does it include? Nothing that crazy complicated in the sense of, how are we going to get more sales? Are we spending enough to actually get sales, right? And is there costs to cut is obviously on the agenda. Is there investors, family, friends, or debt available to help us through this? And, going through those basics when it comes to setting a plan. And then once the plan is approved and it gets followed, it's usually the right track to the success that you want. And, where does it get complicated? It gets complicated where a CFO is not heard by a business leader and they're not understood. And we see that all the time. And certainly in my recruiting space, CFOs get fired a lot. It's not uncommon for CFO to get fired. And many times they're fired because the CEO or the business owner feels that they weren't told the truth or weren't told the whole picture. but if you talk to these people that got fired, they believe that they communicated and they
Yeah.
did give the information. And there's a major gap, and that's often because of the business leadership skill set of that CFO, right? So they think they're communicating, but they're dumping spreadsheets and memos on a visionary business owner that can't, let's be honest, they might not even have the skill set to read them, and that's assuming they opened it.
Yeah. So what is it? The biggest myth of communication is that it happened.
Yes, exactly. And it's so prominent in the CFO world, right? And so it's really key for us at Amplify to be hiring people that recognize that, our client experience is our North Star for a reason, and our values have to be lived. And if you don't do that, you won't succeed. You won't get heard, and you won't grow these businesses.
I really appreciate you can be saying it, but if it's not being, the meaning of your communication is the result that it gets. And if it's getting ignored, then you, sooner or later you've got to own that, right? How do I then deliver that information in a different way? Is it typical? And I'm kind of I'm reading between the lines that you usually get called when shit goes sideways. Is that an oversimplification? Like, I love to think we're all proactive as leaders and we see it coming, so we get ahead of it. What I'm hearing a lot is like, oh, we've got cash flow issues. Like, oh, wow. Holy shit, we didn't see that coming. It feels like you often get kind of the SWAT team call.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, money's
Yeah.
sensitive, right? People don't like to talk about money. They don't like to look at money. And so it is quite, it makes sense in many ways that people aren't proactive when it comes to money in particular, because, if you can be proactive and hire like a sexy marketing firm or fractional CMO today, like that's fun. That's exciting to talk about, right?
I couldn't, as a marketer, I do agree, but I hear your point.
Yeah, no, and so people are proactive often about that, right?
I'm going to tell you about all the exciting things. I'm not going to tell you about your impending cash flow issue.
Yeah, exactly.
But as a marketer, if I know that, it's going to really change the kind of campaign I propose as well. So it all does tie back. Let's be honest.
Oh, it does. I mean, there's
Yeah.
nothing sadder than a successful marketing campaign killing a business, and we've absolutely seen that.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Because financial wasn't considered in conjunction with those successful campaigns. And so, yeah, it's very rare that people take financial strategy serious until there's an issue. And it's unfortunate, but we're more than comfortable getting in there at that point. That's our
I'm here. I don't sense any hesitation for you to quote unquote roll up your sleeves. Talk to me about the marketing campaign that killed the business. All the marketers just leaned in as you said that. Can you give me, because we've all been in there, and like all of a sudden the campaign gets shut off, and sometimes you don't even get optics as why, depending on who your champion is on the other side or where they sit in the echelon. And I've seen many campaigns just get turfed because, oh, this isn't working for us. And you're like, how is it not working? But you're not getting the rest of the story. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, so the classic examples is when you're gunning for certain big contracts, right? Let's say it's a big box store or what have you, and that can be very strategic, right? To campaign to set up your brand at a level that you're being heard, and can even propose to those big box stores as an example.
Yeah.
Takes a very strategic and well-run marketing campaign or brand campain
to be perceived as even worthy to be there, right?
Yeah, worthy to even be considered. And then you actually get the green light, and you get the contract, and you have not aligned your financial strategy with all this brand effort, all this marketing effort, all this relationship building and set
this
up.
10,000 unit order that just showed up that no one is prepared to deal with. Like, as an example of like, okay, perfect. We're going to put you on the shelf. We need 1,000 of this, and we need you to know that you can do it at a drop of a hat. I've been in those conversations too, for sure.
Yeah. And so the terms and conditions, you don't have the financial setup to meet those terms and conditions. And so sometimes you recognize that at the time of signing the contract, but it takes effort ahead of time and proactive. You have to align your marketing and your strategy and your goals with the financial work, getting the right banking set up, getting the right cash flow challenges taken care of, right? So sometimes they get to the point where they win the contract, but then they can't sign it. And then worse, and that doesn't kill a business, literally. It's just incredibly disappointing.
Oh my God, it's so sad. It makes me sad even thinking about it. Like, oh, we got there, and oh shit, and like that's a tough.
It's not unusual because they often don't get themselves prepped. They're not at the level that they can sign that contract. But really far more frequently they do sign the contract and then they can't live up to the terms and conditions, and that will
which is
actually
worse in
bankrupt
a
them.
different way. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that could mean that they're in full distress, offside with banks, pissing off investors, completely offside with this big box store. And, the ability to come out from that much harder. That can kill a business pretty quick, unfortunately. And, the latter happens even more frequently because they'll often sign the contract still not understanding the financial side of the contract. And then now they're stuck within terms and conditions that they have not set a foundation to live up to. And that's a classic example of a successful marketing campaign and sales campaign ruining a business. And it's just unnecessary, because if you started the marketing and brand and sales campaign in conjunction with the financial strategy work, 99% of the time we can get there with you. We could. We could set up the right credit. We could set up the right relationships. We could set up cash flow management that is proactive and keeps you on side. Those things are not hard. They're really table stakes. But if you don't have someone in your business that's seeing that and predicting that, then, it all comes to a head.
And these stories all feel like these aren't hypotheticals you're sharing. I can feel there's a sense of like, oh, I'm thinking of somebody right now that I was out there. I had a ringside seat to this journey.
Yes.
Do you see, you made the comment earlier about, fractional and kind of being behind in Alberta. You didn't say that, I'm saying that, or that it was more prevalent in other areas, but we're seeing it rise. Is it because we're diversifying? It's because we've got a whole bunch of different small business sector, whether it's tech or all the things that go with that? Is it just that we're just maturing? Like what's your thoughts? And this is an armchair answer for sure, but how come we're behind on this?
Well, I would think, one thing that we've seen is, so for example, in the past, what was the small business or the small medium business? It was often a junior oil and gas E&P firm, right? That would have been a huge percentage of our small businesses in our province. And who's the startup owners of a junior E&P oil and gas firm? Well, it's generally a CFO, an engineer,
totally.
a geologist, right? And so, you don't need a fractional CFO because one of your founders is a CFO. Yeah. I haven't actually
He's probably been in the industry for multiple years and had a couple exits under their belt as well.
Exactly.
Right?
So, we're not selling to there's not as many juniors in the market anyways, but we don't sell to juniors.
No, unfortunately, there's a fraction of what there was even 8 years ago.
Yeah, so that's a huge change. So our fractional model doesn't fit them because they have a CFO. Yeah. Sometimes our fractional controller can fit them, but but oftentimes they grow fast enough that they invest, because they have a CFO at the lead, they invest in their financials, so they don't need any fractional. They take the leap right there and then. So from my perspective, that's one example. Obviously, we know that in the past, small medium business, being that it was juniors and in the oil and gas space, like they don't need marketing and brand at the same level. Commodity business isn't going to need marketing and brand. In fact, I would argue sometimes ever, because by the time that becomes relevant, they've sold to the big company, right? So in the small medium
marketing and brand in that world is usually a logo, a business card, and then there's an IR person involved to help kind of promote the stock or the opportunity. That's usually where, in my experience, it kind of starts and stops, right?
Exactly. So that's that's why you wouldn't see the fractional there. And so, it keeps going in the sense of like what's needed for that. So I think we are behind for real reasons. The companies that used to be in growth and small medium
just wasn't
legitimately wouldn't get value from the fractional model. And so it is about us diversifying and changing in that regard, I think. It's not unusual for us to be behind anyways, though, Tyler. I mean, we're behind when it comes to ERP adoption. We're behind when it comes to venture capital. But you know what? We get there, and when we get there, we hit the ground running. So I don't think it's an embarrassment by any means. I think it's just the way we evolve as a community, right?
I completely, and it just comes up all the time. I go, oh, we're a few years behind. And a good friend of mine's down in Vegas right now at a big Adobe experience conference. He's like, oh my God, we're so behind in Alberta. I'm like, but that's the opportunity also, isn't it? Like I tend to look at it the other way, right?
Absolutely.
If it's already saturated and everyone's doing it, well, then where's the opportunity? I'll have to go somewhere where it's on the rise, whatever that it is.
Yeah, and I think that Alberta does a great job of leveraging the growing pains of other communities. So when we hit it at a level that's pretty equivalent pretty fast. It's not like we literally, go through all the growing pains to get to that spot. So, I mean, it ends up working out, right?
It's because all the Saskies we have here. That's what it is. Just
Could
get
be.
shit done and figure shit out. Oh, my Sassy friends are going to be like, good shout out, Tyler. Good, positive. Keep it going. Um, 5 years in business, big chunk of that was during COVID. What have you seen even just in your own evolution? Like, is it, to your point, the last 5 years is significant. I started this podcast 5 years ago. The conversation I had, there was stuff going on, but it was all these silos that weren't touching. Now I talk to, oh, this person knows there, like there's so much more overlap. Kind of what's been your optics, even in just the last 5 years being here in Calgary or Alberta, Southern Alberta?
Yeah, so I mean, with COVID, it was interesting because people really got a great perspective in terms of financial strategy, right? And so I mean, I
Yeah,
would never have
necessity,
planned,
the mother of all innovation, right?
yeah, I would never have planned to start a business pre-pandemic.
Oh,
Like the
cool.
timing
Right
couldn't
on.
have been worse in so many ways, right? Because our
But
official,
you did it though. I say cool because here you are and we're still talking. So clearly you
yeah,
made it through.
exactly. But at the end of the day, it did actually prove the value of what we were selling for us. And so, don't get me wrong, we had a lot of clients in some of the worst hit industries, and it was tough. And I'm really proud to say that they all made it through, and
That's
we
awesome.
managed through, cash flow management, relationship management, and a lot of strategic thoughts. And we got them all through COVID, and it was really challenging. But the value of financial strategy was proven through a pandemic, and it really did
Yeah.
help us grow a lot faster than we otherwise would have grown, right? And so that's certainly not something I would have been able to strategically plan or expect, but it's part of it, right? And then tying to that pandemic is the more flexible work arrangements, right? So we
Yeah.
match culture, as I mentioned. And so if you're an in-person shop, we're going to be in person with you. If you're a hybrid shop, we're going to be in person until we build the relationship to take advantage of your hybrid opportunities. But we also have many virtual and remote clients, right? And
Mhm.
so that has also helped us grow quite a bit because it's people's perspective of work and how they work together is quite different, which allows us to serve more markets and more industries than we would have been able to in a pre-COVID world, right?
It
Because
changed the value equation of like from I have to see the whites of your eyes to what value are you creating in my business, and those two might not actually even be have anything to do with each other.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so that's a big difference as well. And in terms of the actual market that we serve, I cannot actually believe how many industries we have. So we're serving about 80
Hmm.
clients right now,
Okay.
and it is so diverse. It really is, right? I couldn't even tell you, we don't have a prominent industry that we serve. And
Oh
half the
wow, that's
time,
all. I was gonna ask. That was literally my next question. Thanks for that's great.
yeah, and
That's cool.
so half the time the salespeople come to me, and I'm just like, I'm distracting as a leader because I'm like so curious about what do they do? Like, oh my God, there's a market for that? Like, yeah, that is a problem. That's so exciting. And I just get so excited and so curious about the business itself that it's like, oh, you actually came to me like to talk about your sales strategy.
Well,
Guess we should get
Jamie,
back on point.
I'm looking at your values, and your number one value is curiosity, which is my number one just human life value. So the fact that
Yeah,
you're curious, you're living your values, like well executed.
yeah, exactly. And so it's really
I
important.
would expect nothing less. It's written right here on your LinkedIn profile. Curious.
Yeah, no, true. And so it's fascinating what types of industries we are able to serve and represent, and we choose to be a diverse industry shop for a couple of reasons. I mean, at the end of the day, a good finance and accounting department and team, it really is transferable. There,
Yeah, yeah.
88% of what you're doing could be done the same in every single industry, and certainly people think their industry and their organization is complex, and I respect that, and it is complex, but usually that complexity doesn't translate to the finance and accounting best practices. It really just doesn't. What makes a company complex is often people, to be honest, and
Yeah.
relationships and such. But don't get me wrong, there can be very technical complexities and there can be exceptions. But by and large, a great CFO can be a great CFO in any industry. We believe that strongly. And
I
then
appreciate that.
further
Yeah.
to that, because
Yeah.
we integrate right into culture and are truly representing these businesses, it's really important that a CFO is not representing two companies that are in any way competing, right? Because
Yep.
because they are going to fully know all the deepest secrets. And don't get me wrong, we are CPAs, we are held to very high confidentiality and professional standards, but we want to show up as more than just the CPA or consultant. We want to show up as a full human and a director and officer of that company. And so obviously, I was in the distilling industry. So
You learn all the bits. You learn all the
yeah,
bits.
if I know that company X has 200 barrels of whiskey on shelves and I know we have 300, like it's going to be really hard for me to show up at the executive table when I know that competitive secret
Yeah.
of a competitor, right? And so we make sure that each CFO is only on a client, like they only represent one client of one industry, and then all their other clients would be completely different industries so that we can show up fully. And so
Are
that's another reason why we're diverse industries. But it is exciting to see what's going on. And alt energy is big for sure. That might be one of the more prominent ones that we
okay.
see, but there's a lot of different things happening.
I'm very excited. Again, just to speak very broadly, I'm very bullish and also very excited about some of the diversity and what's going on. Like, there's nowhere really better to be right now than where we are in Alberta. It's just I drink the Alberta Kool-Aid. I choose to, but I do a podcast where I talk to people in this market that are all doing exciting kind of things where they're pushing the boundaries. It's hard not to get rose-colored glasses on, which I'm okay with. It's great. It's a much better way than reading the news and feeling like the world is exploding around you every day. I don't feel that in Alberta. There's a lot going on in the last 5 years. The time frame I've been doing this, just the conversations from where I first started to now, just everything. It's moved so much. And like you said, once we latch on to something here, we get her done, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We do it with a vengeance. Last couple questions. If somebody's listening and they're like, hey, you know what? I'm maybe exiting a career at a larger firm. I want to give back. I want to go where I can really make a difference. I don't want to be a cog in a big machine. I want to maybe, because I've talked to a lot of senior people that are like, I'm kind of done with that journey, but I'm not done. I want to contribute. I want to participate. Did they just reach out? Is it as simple as kind of putting their name on the list, or is it a little more of a process to take on the fractional mindset?
Yeah. So Amplify, when it comes to our magic sauce in a lot of ways, is because we have the recruiting department and we also have the finance leader and the fractional, right? And so people that come through us will come through the recruiting department. And if my team thinks that they're a values fit, they will get high. Or if they ask, then we'll check, the team will assess whether they're a values fit. And if they don't ask, but they're a values fit, then they'll present.
You're always on the lookout, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, we're always on the lookout. And so, we get this amazing opportunity. I'm a client of my recruiting department, and they're constantly feeding me the best CFOs in the market. And so then I have a pipeline of CFOs, and my fractional CFOs are employees of Amplify because client experience is our North Star. So they are held to a pretty high standard, and they have an employment arrangement. So I'm not an umbrella of contractors when it comes to my fractional space. I do contractors in recruiting, but my methodology and my
I understand.
is delivered by employees. Yeah. And so I have a pipeline that comes through the recruiting department. And what I'm looking for is people that are client experience focused. They have a passion for the growth businesses that we serve. Obviously, they have to have the table stakes. They have to have been a CFO. Like I said, I'm just not quite at the size that I can be a training shop yet. And I want them to be excited about our values, not willing to put up with them, right? And so
there's a big difference with those two things. Yeah,
it's a big difference. And so then we do have a fairly in-depth client experience values-based process. And then once you're at the end, it's a just-in-time hiring at Amplify. Thankfully, it's not because we can't afford to hire earlier. We are in a position we could, but having a bench strength of executive doesn't make sense because at that level, if they're not providing value and hitting the ground running, they get very frustrated and it's a horrible onboarding. So we do just-in-time hiring because of employee experience, not because of cash. And but I do, like right now, Tyler, actually, it's one of the moments that's exciting. Like right now, I have 4 or 5 CFOs. I would hire tomorrow, like as soon as we get the work and as soon as we get the clients. I want to hire all of them. I probably won't get to because they'll find other work, and my recruiting department is competing with me and constantly selling them to clients. So I won't get to hire.
I do appreciate that dynamic though as a business model.
Yeah, well,
so each department is fighting to give its best service, and sometimes you're competing with each other, which there's some value there too, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a purpose-driven decision. It doesn't
Of
make
course
life
it is.
easy. It doesn't make life easy. But your purpose shouldn't make life easy. but yeah, so
if it is, aim higher, right?
Yeah, so I gave a verbal offer to a CFO yesterday, which knocks one off that list, but I've got 3 or 4 that I can't wait to get on board if I can sell enough to get them on board. So it's really exciting. And back
to the sales side. What's the optics look like? Are we coming out of it, whatever that means? The small R recession that we can't stop talking about. I feel that the recession was more about talking about the recession than it was necessarily a numbers based one. What do you see for 24, 25, like the rest of the year? What's your crystal ball look like over there, Jamie?
Yeah, so I mean, the first quarter was soft in a way of not economic distress or uncertainty or issues. It was soft, I think, because people had a lot going on and catching up. And so we really see things starting
and contracts sat on desk for a while in Q1, right? I heard that from everybody I know. Yeah.
So certainly I'm believing that, right after this spring break, I think we're going to see an influx of opportunities and people ready to pull the trigger and make big decisions.
Yeah, the between now and summer push, right?
Yeah, all the energy suggests that that's the case.
Okay, cool.
So I think overall it's not a soft market. It was a bit of a soft quarter, but not for the economic uncertainty reasons, not for any financial stress reasons, but a little bit soft in terms of allocating time and resources and making decisions and
the activity, the bias to inaction seemed to be hanging around for everybody. Because I've been in executive group and everyone's like, I don't think things are bad, but I came into the year thinking I was going to get a bunch of deals signed, but they're not, but they're still there. They didn't go away. And everyone from different sectors was literally having a different version of that same conversation.
Yeah, actually, you're right. Even I'm in a few forums and I've heard the same thing from them.
Okay.
I believe in collaborative markets, so we have real conversations with competitors, and we're hearing it from them. But again, I don't think it's a sign of financial stress or economic uncertainty. I think it was just priorities. I mean, frankly, even events I thought were a bit soft and slow in Q1. To be honest with you, it didn't seem like people were throwing as much events out as they were in the fall, right up to.
Well, come on, we had the post-COVID event kind of hangover rebound that seemed like there was too many events. So I it's so hard because if you look at the last, everything's you can't just look year over year anymore. There's so many disruptive elements that are well, what was it last spring? Well, I don't know. There was all these things that were different, and it's hard to look at it that way because we always want to compare, right? Well, you're accountants. What does this compare to that? Well, yeah, but there was different factors involved. But I love your sentiment, and I've heard it just because also I hope to be optimistic that things aren't pressured. It's just there was a pause. Okay, great. That means that when the pause comes off, things are going to rock and roll, which is great.
Absolutely. That's what we're expecting for sure.
Excellent. I like that crystal ball prediction. Jamie, what's the best way? Obviously, there's a million ways. LinkedIn, online, you put yourself out there a lot, which I appreciate as an owner and getting found and people knowing who you are. What's preferred if someone just wants to reach out to you?
LinkedIn is the best to reach out to me.
Cool.
And if they search Jamie L. Smith, they should find me.
The L is critical. I want to exaggerate for the audience. Don't forget the L.
You have to, or else you'll never find me. So LinkedIn is absolutely the best way to personally reach me. If you're trying to reach Amplify as a whole, it would be our website, amplifyadvisors.ca. And
that does come up right away. If you just put in Amplify Advisors, you guys come up to
perfect.
right at the top. I checked this morning.
And, I would also love to let your listeners know we have AHA with Amplify. So complimentary certified professional development meant for business leaders and CPAs. And so there's a lot of generosity in our purpose. And so, take a look at the website, see if there's some information that you can use. And feel free to execute on your own and fix your cash flows just by listening.
But if you need us, we're just a phone call away. I love it.
Read our ebook and fix your cash flows or call us.
Amazing. Jamie, thanks so much for coming on. Thanks for the work you do. And just thanks for being a fun chat. I loved it.
Awesome. I appreciate the opportunity, Tyler. It was great.
Awesome. We're heading into a long weekend. So this is Fake Friday for everyone. This will come out down the road, but this is the weekend, the Friday before the long weekend, and spring is in the air in Alberta. So I'm excited about that as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.